Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. We have promised for a long time to bring to you guys a top 10 of all time, and with our stretch goals being fulfilled for Season 1 Man vs. Meeple Kickstarter, we're finally able to deliver on that promise. Now, we know how important a top 10 is because it helps categorize the type of gamers that we are. So when we bring future titles onto our show, you'll be able to understand a little bit better the type of games that we enjoy playing.
Yeah.
So to help me do that, of course, I have David with me as always.
Hello, everyone.
And we brought Gary back.
Hello.
Gary is a longtime contributor of the show. We're going to start off telling you guys, just like we have with all of our top 10 episodes, why we pick the games that we pick, what criteria that we use in order to pick these games, and why they're important to us. So, Gary, we're going to start off with you. Go ahead and tell us what you use to pick your top 10, then you'll start off with number 10.
Yeah, one of my criteria is it's going to be a game that I'm going to get off my shelf often. I'm saying probably 5+ times.
As in a year?
In a year.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's important because some people just say 5 times in general. It's a top 5, but a lot of these games you have to really replay over and over to understand if they're a game that you want to keep.
Exactly. And also, I have a couple gaming groups. Some are a little smaller, some are a little larger. So I enjoy the party games. I like the 2-player games. I enjoy the Euros. There's a couple of Ameritrash that I like as well. So I've got a really big mixture, but I do have, as you'll probably see in my list, one type of game I kind of lead toward.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But my number 10 is a party game, and that is Time's Up Deluxe, and also Time's Up Title Recall, which is another one. I love this game. Every time I bring this game out with family or friends or maybe an event, it has tons of laughs. It's just a lot of fun. If you don't know the game, it's pretty basic. There's going to be 3 rounds. And you start off, you're going to have a stack of 40 cards. Mm-hmm. And we'll just say with the basic game, it's just people's names, history people, comedians, actors, whatever. Your first round is you can say you have a partner. Mm-hmm. You say whatever you want to say, but you can't pass. And you got 30 seconds to get as many as you can. And you keep going till the stack of 40 is gone. You just keep moving down the line with your teams of 2.
Right.
Your second round is you can say one word, you get one guess, but you can pass.
And the great thing about the game, too, is once you go through the stack of cards, everyone starts to have an idea of what was in that stack.
You can kind of start second guessing, okay, he's going to do this for his third round of Clue, and then maybe you're way off. Yeah, it's really...
And if somebody has a funny clue, it's just so bad. That clue kind of keeps coming up, and you know what that is. And then, of course, the third round is the best round where you can't say anything. You have to act it out or mime it. And you see people totally come out of their shells. Yeah. And it's just hysterical, and it's just a lot of fun.
This is a game that was played at BGG-Con in great depth. I mean, it was a game that was played practically every single day, multiple times in the day, and we were a part of that group a couple times. Yeah. A lot of people love that game.
It's a fun game.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It's not exactly probably one of those wheelhouse games that you were talking about, but it made your list.
But that's what's important, though. It gives people identity of what kind of games you like. You like social games. A lot of the games are centered around that social aspect.
Absolutely.
For the type of gamer that you are. David?
So my top 10, I approached it kind of the same way. But I'm a little all over the place. I like so many different types of games. So like Gary, you're going to find 2-player games on my list. Mm-hmm. Probably not too many social games. Mm-hmm. A little bit more of the medium weight Euro that's in my wheelhouse. But the core component that I look for in a game is not just replayability, although that is important, but something that I can play with a wide variety of groups. Yeah. So I can play with you guys, I could play with my family, my friends, easy to teach, not something that's too heavy. Yeah. Although I like heavy games, but they're not going to make my top 10. Right. So with that said, I have one that's very near and dear to my heart because it was an early game for me when I got into the more modern gaming scene, and that's Seasons. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous game if you've never played it. Yeah. It's got a huge community online playing it on Board Game Arena. But this game is, it's a Euro really at heart with a lot of different mechanics going on, but it doesn't look like your traditional Euro. It's very, very colorful and artistic, and it's got a table presence. That's what drew me to it. I can't remember the year at Gen Con. 2010 maybe?
It's been a while.
Like
it's been a while since the game came out.
And it's got these big, giant, chunky dice, all these different components. In fact, there's another game coming out later this year, Dice Forge, that is very reminiscent if you want to take a look at that.
It's the same designer, I believe, too.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one of my favorite games of all time, and you can play this and never get used to all the cards because with the expansions, there's a ton of cards.
The only main issue I've ever had with that game is the length. Once you add a fourth player, the game becomes way too long.
I treat this as a 2-player game, honestly, because at 4 players, it is a long game.
Yeah. The way I pick my criteria, it's pretty simple. I don't like luck-driven games, so you're not going to see a lot of dice-driven games. In fact, I only have 2 games in my entire list that have dice at all in there for components. It's amazing. The other thing I thought about is if I were on a desert island and I only had 10 games with me, and these are games that had to last until I died, and I was with my 3 best friends, what games would we be able to play over and over and over? Replayability is huge to me, plus the fun factor of playing it. I like diving into games. I like engine building. I like tableau building. I love card drafting. I like being able to use strategy over luck in games.
Yeah.
So my first game is a game that I'll admit I haven't played this game in about a year and a half. I love it. I don't know if either one of you guys have played this game, but it's one of my favorite games. It's an area control game. It's called Terra Mystica. Fantastic game. It is 2 to 5 players, takes about 2 hours to get through. It has, the reason why I really like it is because it handles the area control in a really unique way. You're playing one of 14 possible factions in the game. And the closer you get to somebody, the more benefit you get to your character. However, it literally stops you from expanding. So you're constantly juggling how I want to expand, what buildings do I want to expand with, and what benefits do they give me in the course of the game. Tons of decision, no luck, pure strategy.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. I've never played Terra Mystica. The one thing I've heard about it that probably would keep it off my list is I've heard it 2 players. It's not. It loses some.
Yeah.
So I like those games a lot, especially when you can also play them at 2 players, and it's still just as fun.
It's a good point. Valid point. Number 9.
All right, my number 9 was last year's Kinderspiel, Dejaris winner. And that is Isle of Skye.
Oh, wow.
Great pick.
It's a good pick.
It's such a fun game. I never was the biggest fan of Carcassonne, in terms of tile laying, but this is a tile laying game. But it is just enough to where you're having to watch kind of everybody else's tiles. You have some scoring tiles that are also on your point board that you're going to get your extra points from, and you're just kind of building this little Isle of Skye. You're trying to maybe get some farmhouses or some lighthouses in your water. You can build little groups of mountains and stuff, and it is so fun. Plus, it has that auction mechanic where you can buy somebody's tile when do they want that, and how much money am I willing to give up? And that is a great little aspect of that game.
The auction aspect of that game, which I don't generally like in many games, it is really done well in that game. Plus, the variable scoring is my favorite part of that game. The fact that you lay out different scoring tiles every time you play it, and there's quite a few of those tiles.
Yeah.
There's a ton of tiles. The replayability is huge in that game.
When we talked about our Spiel des Jahres back in July, we did an episode for that. That was on that list, and we had called it at that time kind of if you come in with Carcassonne, that's kind of a gateway game. This is definitely a Carcassonne style of game, but it's more midweight game for most people. Yeah. And Pfister is an incredible designer. I mean, he's on a roll. He's come out with a lot of good games. Moonbasa, of course, Great Western Trail this year.
Right.
Fantastic designer.
Well, he won the Kinderspiel the year before that with Broom Service. So, he's on a roll.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you have for number 9, David?
So my number 9, we've mentioned 2-player games. This is an oldie but a goodie to me, Quarto. And this is an abstract game.
People are scratching their heads right now. Like, what is this? How do I find this?
I have not played this.
You've got to play Quarto.
It's good.
And if I the way I'm going to describe it, everyone's going to roll their eyes. But it's like Connect 4 or Tic Tac Toe on steroids.
Yeah,
because there's many variables with these pieces that you're playing. They can be tall, short, round, square, dark, light. Some have holes, some don't. And you're trying to get 4 in a row of any one of those variables.
Yeah.
And the gimmick, which is really cool, is you don't play your own pieces. There's a collective pool of all the pieces together. So one person's not dark and one's light. All the pieces are there, and you pick the piece that I'm going to play. And then I pick the piece that you're going to play. So
that's a great mechanic.
It boils.
Need to try this.
It boils down to not giving the piece to your opponent that's going to let them win.
Yes.
And it's a brilliant.
So you're
game.
trying to set yourself up and not set them up. It is brilliant. Very good game. Total abstract. My number 9, I try to stay away from Cult of the New games, but I had to put this on the list because I'm so passionate about this game. It's called Gloomhaven. I did not want to like this game when it first came out. When I talked to Isaac, he's a local designer here, about an hour away from us. I looked at the rule book and thought 56 pages. Who would want to invest the kind of time in this game? It's about 2 hours per session, and you have 90 plus scenarios to play with. However, having sat down and played the game, it is a Eurocentric dungeon crawler, which we don't see in modern board games. A lot of these games rely simply on rolling the dice and getting what you get. The hand management in this game is brilliant, utterly brilliant. The way that you move your characters, the way you attack, everything in the game is strategic. Plus, the legacy portion is the best legacy portion in any game, period. You're constantly given feedback from the game on how to level up your characters, where to go, what to do, and there's always choices for you on how you want to approach it.
Jeremy likes this game. We can attest to this fact. In fact, I'm surprised it's at number 9. He's loved this game since we've actually pulled it out and started playing it.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic game. Number 8.
All right, number 8, another Fister, Great Western Trail. This was my number 1 game of 2016.
Yeah.
You can go watch our review of that, and I talked at length about that. This game is so good. It's so fun. I've taught it to, I'd probably say 6 people, and I'd say half of them have never really played a kind of a Euro-y type game like that, and they got it.
Yeah, the theme
helps
so much for people who haven't played a lot of Euros. And not just because it's set in America, but just because it's a more approachable theme than farming. It's more palpable. You're taking these cows. Yeah.
Well, you got the deck building. You got a little bit of engine building.
Oh, yeah,
you got this rondel board. You're just cycling through, and you got a little bit of a time limit. You know, as you're taking your cowboys and your engineers and those guys, and you got there's just so many ways you can win this game.
Yeah.
And they're all good ways.
And we say this a lot about a lot of games, but when you get through the first round, then it becomes much easier to play. That game has that in spades. Once you get through to Kansas City, there's not a player around the table who is still scratching their head going, what do I do?
Yeah.
It's just rinse and repeat, and it gets
intuitive.
even better every time.
Yeah.
Agreed. Number 8, David.
Number 8, this one's been around for a while. It's very hard to get right now, and that is Stone Age. There are a lot of worker placement games out there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of worker placement games I love nearly as much as Stone Age. But when I was putting this list together, I wanted to go with the really pure. And I think Stone Age is, in my opinion, one of the purest examples of worker placement. It doesn't have too many things going on. There are a few other games in that category that I really like that cross that line. Stone Age has the perfect amount, especially if you're going to be playing it with a lot of different types of groups. You can play Stone Age with it's pretty much like the quintessential gateway worker placement game.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And the scoring, this was one of the first games I played where you truly have no clue who's going to win for the most part, unless you're really paying attention until the end. And then there's all this point salad scoring at the end, which was just so incredible the first time I played it. I fell in love. So Stone Age is my number 8.
Stone Age is a
great
fantastic game. I've had that game in my collection since I started playing board games, and it's one of those games. I always talk about games and calling games when new games come out that replace them. That's one game that will never leave my collection no matter what comes out.
Yeah,
it'll always have a place.
It's sort of the granddaddy of them all in terms of those types of games, in my opinion.
Yeah. My number 8 is Nations. I really like civilization-style building games. This is a 1 to 5 player game, although I would never play it as a single-player game. It's got really awesome card drafting abilities. If you know how to draft well and build a strong engine, a Tableau engine, this is the game for you. It really, really takes you from an early civilization, which all these variable player powers, depending upon the nation that you have, all the way to the end of civilization. The way that you manage your resources in this game is really, really smart. I love that. And this game puts an emphasis on players who know long-term planning. Sure, you can get some short-term games, but players who have that strategy going in are going to win, typically. And I love the war aspect of it, too. I think it handles war in this game really, really well.
Yeah, we played that one with you, and I'd never played it. That was, almost a year ago that we played it.
Yeah, the only problem with the game that I have, personally, is that it can be a long game. If you're playing with 4 players, it can last 2.5, even 3 hours at times. But I love the game. Absolutely.
No, it was really
fun.
good. It was surprisingly good. For that kind of game, which I don't... That long play is not usually my thing, but I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. We're on 7.
All right, number 7. I'm not the biggest railroad fan, but Russian Railroads is my number 7.
It's not an 18X game?
It's not an 18XX game. And I tell you, actually, Russian Railroads has kind of actually made me start to like the railroad game again. But this game, there are point salad games, and then there are point smorgasbord games. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
this game, we played a game once. I think we were all in the 300s.
Yeah.
Well,
And
it
you can
builds
have
over time
it
so
keeps
much.
building and building, and I love the tension of the worker placement aspect of it. You're building your rail lines, you're building your industry. There's you're back to more routes the way to win, and it is so satisfying when you're like, hey, I got this little engine going on here, and you can literally have like a 60, 70-point swing in one round. You're like, whoa, that was awesome.
The rounds in that game, it's super satisfying as you play it, because in the first round, what are you scoring? Everyone's scoring less than 10 points.
Yeah, it's
something like
minuscule.
that. And then in the final round, you're scoring like 100 and some points in some round. That's insane, because it really picks up steam, no
Right.
pun intended. And that is a game, like Stone Age. I picked Stone Age. Russian Railroads just missed the cut for me, because that's that worker placement game waiting right behind Stone Age.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
if you play a game like Stone Age, you're looking at I think it's like 8 worker spots, and if you add the expansion in, you have a 9th worker spot. When you look at a game like Russian Railroads, that game literally has, the last time I counted, it was like 22 worker spots that you can go in. So your options are almost tripled in that game, which means that it's definitely not a gateway game. It's a game that has to come in at a higher level for people to play this game. Fantastic game, though. And plus, with the expansion,
German and American
Yeah,
railroads,
American,
which
all of
are
them.
super great.
Yeah. What do you have for number 7?
My number 7, this is probably my first Cult of the New pick. It was my top pick last year, and that's Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
Terraforming Mars, in fact, has a lot in common with Seasons, in my opinion. Has an insane amount of cards that come into your hand. And a lot of the people I play with, my girlfriend included, we get cards in our hand and we just love poring over them, reading them, trying to figure out, what's this one going to do? And should I keep this one or should I ditch this one? And the fact that all the players are progressing the 3 aspects of the game, increasing the water, the oxygen, and the temperature on Mars, is a really cool endgame trigger, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're building this tableau, you're building insane amounts of engines in front of you, just doing all these sorts of little things. So unlike the long-term play, the short-term play and satisfaction in Terraforming Mars is huge, because every turn you can go, okay, I'll do this and this and this, and I get a ton of this.
That's one of these games where you almost have to play the variant version of it to get the most out of it. If you're playing the game and you're just getting 4 new cards every turn, you can run into a lot of luck factors in Terraforming Mars. If you play the draft, though, you can kind of mitigate the luck in the cards that you get. So you almost have to play that game with the draft.
Yeah.
And when you play with the draft, that's when the game really excels,
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
my opinion.
And this game's going to have a lot of staying power. It has 4 expansions on the way.
Oh, boy.
That's crazy.
So that is
You have
crazy.
a
But
stack of cards this big that you have
must
to
be
go
a
through.
huge stack of cards.
I'm going to get a card
It's a great
shuffler
game.
for that game.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. My number 7 is this is one of my 2 games that uses dice. And I have to preface this by saying that I'm picking the collector's edition of this and not the regular edition. That to me means that almost the form of the game is as good as the function. However, the function of the game, the way the game plays, is really good. It's War of the Ring Collector's Edition.
Yes.
This is if you were ever take a game that is thematically perfect to the original IP that it's delivered from, this is it. This is the best representation of a book or a movie that's ever been, in my opinion, in a board game form. You're either playing the free armies, or the free peoples, or the shadow armies. And it's a strategic war game, which you're using hand management to be able to hide your fellowship, getting it to Mount Doom, or survive the onslaught of coming shadow armies against you. Fantastic game. It's a long game, and it really needs to be played as a 2-player game. It's one of those games that you have a massive board and you are standing the entire time, right? You're moving armies, you're looking around, and you're doing this over the board the entire time. Fantastic game. Have you guys, either one of you guys
We
played
have
this?
not played it.
We've looked at yours.
We've
We
looked
like
at
the
yours.
players.
It
Right?
sounds like something I would not excel at. But I'd love to watch it played for sure.
It's definitely has a barrier for entry learning the game. There's a lot of rules. The rule book's pretty thick.
It
and
helps
there's a lot
too
of
that you're a
figures.
gigantic Lord of the Rings fan.
Well, I think we all are. I mean, hey, how can you not be? So
Great theme.
6.
All right, number 6, one of yours is Gloomhaven for me.
Oh, wow.
And,
know-
and to preface this real quick, I'm the only one who sees this list prior.
Yep.
There's only a couple games on these lists that are shared. You and I share 2 games, and you 2 share 2 games, but we share nothing.
We share nothing.
Which is surprising after all the games that we played that we don't have anything in common.
You have a longer history of games, too. I think that plays into it a little bit.
Gloomhaven. All right, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's right. This game is so good, like you said. I don't want to repeat all that you've just said. I'll just kind of go why I'm picking this one. I mean, we've played it a good 8, 9, 10 times.
Yeah.
And I keep wanting more and more. And I've now have some friends I've had their copies. They were telling me last week, we can't get enough of this game. You were right. This game is so good. My fearless prediction, this game is going to be top 15 on BGG probably by the end of the year.
My guess is the top 5.
I checked. I checked
really
on
believe
Monday, and I checked today. It's gone up 800 points in ranking. So,
Yeah.
and that's in a week of people actually having it in their hands. This game
Yeah.
is just phenomenal. I have never was a RPG guy, but I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and this is like for me is World of Warcraft kind of on a table. You got your rating, you got your upgrading, your leveling, your dungeons,
Your
and all sorts of
legacy
stuff.
portion. I mean,
It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Like you said, the hand management part totally makes that game and the way those cards work.
Isaac should be supremely proud of that.
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean, the
very
amount of time
well-done
that
game.
I couldn't imagine. I can't imagine designing a game. Period. But a game of that magnitude and
Right.
all of those scenarios. that have to be
95
written.
scenarios. It's going to take you a couple of years just to get through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of game there for
There's a
sure.
lot.
That's why I
game.
picked it. Desert Island, Gloomhaven. I mean, that could be the only game you
Worst
play.
cases, you can use the box to like get food.
Right.
All right.
All right, number 6 is another 2-player game for me. 7 Wonders Duel. I'd considered 7 Wonders because it too is a really quintessential game in board gaming. But Duel for me, because it has such a really clearly 2-player element, and I play a lot of 2-player games. This game is so much fun. It's fast. It's easy, and especially like we said late last year with the expansion Pantheon.
Yeah.
Even better. You know, it was already a great game in my opinion, and then with Pantheon, it surprisingly made it even better. And you really wouldn't play it without it.
No, I mean, we were talking
Right.
about that when we were talking not only for our review of Pantheon, but talking about Clank, how you can get the expansion and just get more Clank. However, you have to have Pantheon to really get the most out of Duel.
Yeah, if you
And
have
that-
Pantheon, I don't know why you'd play it without it.
Right.
honestly.
Ever, yeah. I 100% agree. My number 6, I know you're going to have it on your list. It's Blood Rage by Eric Lang. This is his best game by far. Fantastic game. Viking themed. It's dudes on a map, except it uses a lot of cool mechanics. You're leveling up your Vikings. Everyone can level up in different ways. I love the way that it handles war. That's the thing I take from it when I say, why is the game great? You don't have to win every single battle to do well in Blood Rage with the right cards. If you're able to draft, again, card drafting,
Yeah,
right.
if you're able to draft really well in a round, you can mitigate your losses and your wins by drafting well. I can't imagine with CMON and everything that they're involved in that they wouldn't look at this game and say, we need to do an expansion. I mean, it amazes me nothing has been announced in what'll be 2 years now because it came out at Gen Con 2 years ago. So, fantastic game.
Great game.
Yeah, and that's,
I love it.
As you alluded to, it's not likely on my list because those types of games
Conflict,
aren't generally
yeah.
conflict. However, when I've played that game is a really good game for the Care Bears in the world too, because you can, there's
Yeah.
Valhalla.
Yeah.
You're not always having to win the battles. You can get, you score some points by losing some battles too. So
Yeah.
very good game.
All right, we are at number 5.
Number 5 for me is Grand Austria Hotel. This is my favorite.
I told you there was a game on his list that I just
Number
didn't understand.
5.
There's a
Is that how many points you scored in your first week?
Okay, we'll get to that in just a second. This is my favorite 2-player game that's actually a 2 to 4-player game.
Interesting.
This game is awful at 4 players because it's just the downtime is just horrible.
The downtime is pretty bad.
3 is
Yeah.
good. 2 is great.
Yeah.
I love the dice mitigation, the dice mechanic, your dice drafting.
Yeah.
And you have limited turns to really maximize getting your people fed and into rooms so you can board them. And then also you gotta. This would be my,
Emperor track.
Emperor track.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Emperor track. I tried to in a game with Jeremy once to just totally ignore the Emperor, and he totally
Destroyed you.
destroyed me. And I scored 40 points.
Those designers like that mechanic
Yeah.
too. In Lorenzo, they also had that religion track, which very reminiscent of the Emperor
I'm surprised this is the game that I talked to you about earlier. I'm surprised you picked that one over Lorenzo, but you told me that you just played it way more times.
I've played it way more times. Now, of course, Lorenzo will come out later this year, and we'll see what happens in my next year. But if Lorenzo has moved on up, but it is two different games.
Yeah, and the theme for Grand Austria is really good too. That's another game I've found that when you're teaching people who aren't used to a lot of board games, they can wrap their head around.
Yeah, they sure can.
Okay, we own a hotel and we're trying to get people and put them in these rooms. That it makes sense to people.
Yeah. What do you have, David?
Number 5, in a similar vein to Grand Austria, Voyages of Marco Polo. This game also has not dice drafting, but you're using dice as your workers in a worker placement game.
Yeah.
And depending on what numbers are on the dice, allow you to do different things, get different resources or amounts of resources. Really, really good game. In fact, I think there's some similar people involved.
Yeah.
With Marco Polo, Grand Austria,
the same guys.
Lorenzo, the other cool thing about this game, and we've played a lot of games with variable powers. This game was probably one of the first games that absolutely blew me away with the variable powers, because as you're pulling out those characters, you look at one and you're like, how can this not be the best character in the game?
Right.
And then the next one comes out and you're like, oh, I see, that one's broken.
I would say that I agree with that statement. However, the variable player powers in this game are both the benefit and the crux of the game, especially in a 2-player game. Some of these 2-player variable powers are way better than some of the other ones.
So that often is the case with variable powers, because I wouldn't say they're better, but there are some that are definitely worse at 2 players.
Absolutely.
You know, the ones that benefit from more people at the table.
The resource one.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have some mechanics in there to sort of mitigate that a little bit at 2 players. But
it's not enough, in my opinion, because every time they gather resources, you're getting free resources.
The other thing about this game is it is fast.
It is, yeah.
Like, I've played this with my sons, and it's everything I can do to get these guys at the table anymore to play a board game. But this one, while it looks like there's a lot going on, and there is a fair amount to the game, you're burning through it. The rounds just go really, really fast. In fact, I think when we first played it, one of our first comments was, oh, it felt like I didn't get as much done as I wanted to get done.
Yep. My number, what are we at, 5 is 7 Wonders, the regular 7 Wonders. Love this game.
This would be on your list.
Love this game. I love, again, card drafting is one of my favorite game mechanisms. This game really rewards players who draft well and players that are observant. Although you're only really competing with the people next to you, left and right, you really, in a large player game, you need to look around the table and see what cards are being drafted. And for those people like myself who know the cards really well, you can see what's being drafted and what's still available, so you can kind of mitigate your odds on getting the cards that you need. Plus, the 3 expansions, Babel, Cities, and Leaders, are all fantastic. I know some of them are a little bit better than the others, but all of them really add to the gameplay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Babel, actually, as late as that came out, relative to when it came out. Really kept it much more interesting. If you played a lot of 7 Wonders, Babel makes it like a refreshing new game.
And it's a super quick game. Even, in my opinion, as long as you're playing with players that have played the game, if you're playing with 3 players or 7 players, the turn structure basically takes the same amount of time. Everyone's looking at card pass, play your card, done. You know, it's quick.
Yeah, that is phenomenal when you think of it. It makes sense that is the case, but when you sit down with 7 players at the table, a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? And it just moves right along.
It moves. Number 4.
Number 4, I think this is a classic for a lot of people, but it's 5 Tribes. Especially with the Artisans and the Kala expansion.
You told me to put with expansion on
With expansion. I love that expansion. It's one of the best expansions I think I've played for a game.
If it didn't have the expansion, would it be on there?
Yes.
Okay.
I still love, I don't know if it'd be number 4.
Okay.
But I would still, 5 Tribes just, I don't know, it's kind of near and dear to my heart. I've played it so much. I've taught so many people 5 Tribes, you know, so people are like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to buy it. It's just, you got that Mancala system. You kind of got those Jinn cards, those genies. They're kind of the game breakers and stuff. But the Artisans is great because it makes the board bigger. We have more tiles. You got to go around mountains. You got a whole new group of Meeples, the Artisans. They give you more points and stuff. It's just a fantastic game. It's easy to teach. I taught my mom and sister this game through FaceTime.
Really?
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
And you know, because I got it for them. They wanted to really learn. I showed them how to play it. So it's accessible. Yes, it's prone to AP. You know, that's a
can
big
be.
thing. It can
Sure.
be.
It
But
can
once
be.
you get used to and stuff, you know, the games move
what
fast.
game can't be prone to
Exactly.
AP with the
Exactly.
specific
Yeah,
type of people?
I love that game too. I think the AP comes in where you're planning your move, and then so much can change
Right.
before your turn, so you
Right.
kind of have to start from scratch
Right.
a lot.
Yeah, that's in my opinion Bruno's best game by far. Number 4.
My number 4, another 2-player game. This one also just recently came out, and the way we both
Cult
gushed
of the
about
New.
it.
Wow, yeah.
This thing had to be in my top 10. It's Santorini.
This thing,
Yes.
yes.
We have the
Ah.
poster right there. This game is easily, in my opinion, one of the best 2-player games ever made. Like, even the basic version of it, without all of the variable powers, is a really, really interesting and simple yet deep strategic game. When you add all those characters with the different powers, it completely changes every single game. I can't think of another game where you really are playing a mostly different game every time you play it, depending on what character you choose.
You know, it's fast, and you can keep new gods.
10,
Just like,
15
try to
minutes
do it.
per
Yeah,
game.
easy.
Oh yeah, when I play that, I generally play through all the cards. We basically draft a couple, pick one, and then play another game, do the same thing until there's no more cards left. So we're playing a handful of games every
good
time.
way to do it.
Yeah.
My number 4 is a big game. It's Sid Meier's Civilization. Fantastic Civ building game. It's a tableau building game. You are winning by one of 4 main victory conditions.
Just like the computer game.
Yeah, I mean, it's based off of the very immensely popular video game. You win by economy, by war, military, by culture, and by technology. Basically,
like getting
sending a
them-
shuttle
Yeah.
up into space. Ton of options, a ton of ways to play the game. There's a ton of player interaction in the game. Fantastic. It does last about 3 hours, though. But some of my all-time, probably 4 of my top 5 gaming moments in my entire life have come from this game.
Really?
And that's out of probably a dozen plays.
Wow.
Interesting.
It's got some of the way the game ends is always a nail biter. Someone doing something right before someone else, or nuking, their main capital, or building up their economy. It's utterly fantastic, and neither one of you guys have played this game. So hopefully in the next
hopefully
couple
play it
weeks we'll get a
soon.
chance to
Does
play
it
with
stay
you.
pretty close throughout, or is there a possibility that someone just rolls
In all
away
the
with
games that I have played, I have never seen a runaway leader in this game. But I'm playing with people that have played it and know how to manage their system. So
Wait till you play with me.
we'll see.
I'll be in the Stone Age while you're launching rockets.
3.
All right, number 3, Orleans. Especially the deluxe
interesting.
version.
Okay.
I love this game. I think last year I played this game 17 times with one of my groups. We were playing it like that was just in a game we were going to play, and you got the bag building. But I love that deluxe version because it's so chunky.
Yeah.
And it's just
it's a
it's very
perfect word for that
tactile.
game.
Yeah, exactly. And again, there's a lot of routes to go. Your beneficial deeds boards, and you're trying to go through Orleans and picking up all the resources and such like that.
I
I
like
really
that
enjoy
game.
that
It
game.
doesn't have enough player interaction, and the first expansion was, in my opinion, not a very good expansion. It had too many solo play stuff. The
Right.
co-op one was okay, but the 2 new elements they added to the multiplayer game were not good. Now, we have the second expansion. I
Yes.
have it, and I think you have
I've got it right now.
Have you played that one?
We started to go through it. I think it makes the game so much better. We'll never play the game without this. You got
wow.
the intrigue board, which is highly take that.
Good.
Highly.
In my opinion, a lot of people
Yeah,
like
which
Orleans
we-
because there's no
changes it.
interaction. I know you like it that way.
Right.
I want to see some player interaction in
Yeah.
it.
And the trade changes the whole beneficial deeds board and actually makes it much more interesting. Plus, you have those those event cards. That's like your timer.
Yeah.
All new. Like you have
Completely
one
new,
to be
right?
completely new.
So
all
you don't have
different.
like 2 of every one.
Right.
You have a
and
unique
they
event.
completely change, yeah. So you can have a lot of different variability. We'll never play probably without the trader intrigue.
Will I ever get
expansion.
my copy back?
Probably not.
Number 3.
My number 3 is a classic. It's Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah.
This one is interesting to me because, and I'll get to the game itself, you've probably played it. This epitomizes the kind of game that not many years ago, I would have walked into a board game store, I would have looked at this game, and I would have said,
Nope.
No way. That is the most drab-looking Euro-type game. I have no interest. It's 8 shades of beige.
Yeah.
Like, No, sir. And then you got me to try it, and I absolutely just fell in love with it immediately. This is such a good game. It's way up there on it's within the top 10 on BGG, and for good reason.
Yeah.
This game, and I've said it before, I want a deluxe version of this game so bad with refined art. But even with that said, it's still an incredible game, and it's actually the artwork and the way it looks has grown on me because I like it so much. There's a certain charm
to Euros, the way Euros look. However, I agree. I think that if a game ever needed a deluxe version, this could be a cash cow. I mean, I can't imagine people not seeing a deluxe, beautiful-looking version of Castles of Burgundy and not being like, I want that game.
Yeah, the only trick would be not to make it too big because there's so many components and so many tiles. You know, you couldn't have big chunky wooden tiles or anything.
You could.
Like
I mean,
that.
look at Small World. It's a normal box game, and they deluxified it, and it's got all these big chunky tiles.
Chunks, yep.
They
You
could
need a
do
football
that.
field to play it.
Yeah. I don't know if the
table.
sales are there to get
Right.
If you haven't tried Castles of Burgundy yet, and if you're one of those players who looks at Euros and thinks, no, thank you,
Yeah.
try Castles of Burgundy. I got him to try it about
Just a couple weeks
couple
ago.
months
It was
ago.
awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, it was really good
I
experience.
want to play it again.
My number 3 was a game that was my number 1 last year, Feast for Odin. If you look at worker placement games, this is kind of the quintessential worker placement game. It's got everything in it. It's got 50 plus spots.
It does.
60, is it 62 spots?
61, 63 with 4 players.
Yeah, it's you look at all the games that Rosenberg has made through the years. He has, Le Havre, and he has Caverna, and he
Agricola.
has Fields of Arles and Agricola. This takes all the things that he's done and puts them into one box. And we said this before. We think that he actually had this game years ago, and it just took him 10 years to develop. So he made Agricola out of Feast for Odin, He
It's
made
like he had this
Patchwork out of Feast
massive
for
idea, and while he was getting there, he published some games that were pieces and parts of it, and Feast is like everything. He perfected it. And that's how, it's a good way to look at all of his games. They're all obviously got a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
I mean, even Patchwork has some elements there, obviously.
Yeah.
But it brings all those things together really well.
And in the same essence of Agricola, where you have all these decks of cards, you have the same thing in Feast for Odin, where you can be playing this game for a long period of time because you have the A, B, and C
the
deck,
replayability is insane.
Yeah.
In fact, the board alone, 61 spaces. I played the first 2 games, and there's probably 20 spaces I hadn't gone to still.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different ways to score points, and the amazing thing with this game is even if you can get as long as you can get a new player through the rules explanation, because it is lengthy. It's not hard to follow, but it is a lengthy rules explanation. Once you get them through it, a lot of people can play this game. It's not it's nowhere near as intimidating as
and
it
even
looks.
you said during our review that little tiny player board they have in there with the sequential turn order is a huge component in that game because it walks you through in a very graphical way what each step takes.
Yep.
And once you understand that, the game becomes very simple, and then it's just deciding what you want to do.
Right.
It just takes almost an hour to explain all that.
All right, we're on to number 2.
All right, number 2 is mine as Pandemic Legacy. It's the number 1 game on BGG. There's not a lot more to be said about it. I have played through it twice with 2 different groups. And kind of like what you were saying about Sid.
That's impressive. Playing through it twice.
You know what, though? It was great because I got to experience with another group, and different things happened. It actually was a different game. Yeah, I kind of knew what was going to happen, but we still had a different game. You talked about Sid Meier's Civilization, some of your best gaming experiences. Pandemic Legacy did that for me. I mean, I still talk when I talk to my gamer group, we still talk about some of the people. We had our medic was Colonel Taco Suzuki, may he rest in peace, because he died, and it was so huge when it happened.
Right.
It was so demoralizing, for our group. But it's like the game just kept giving you more that you could just power through it, get another person in there, and we still did so well in the game, and it's great. Now this is a game I can't really play again. It's a legacy, but Season 2's coming out, so. Yeah, I'm going to get to play this game again. I can't wait for Season 2.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you haven't played it at all, I don't think.
No, I haven't played the Legacy
I'm
at all.
still
I played
stuck
Pandemic,
on,
of course.
I'm still stuck on May. I haven't finished our campaign either.
I think I want to take Season 2 for a spin, for sure.
Number 2.
Number 2, Gary already talked about this one already, but it's 5 Tribes. I've said it before, this is easily one of my favorite games of all time. It's one of those games that as much as I love, like you said, I think for your first, it's still hard to get to the table. Partly because we play so many games. But Five Tribes, another one with kind of a slightly chunky rules explanation. You have to go through what each of those guys do. But once you can get new players past that, it works out really well. The Mancala aspect is very easy where people are picking that up. Almost everyone's played Mancala, so they get that idea. And the variability, the fact that the board is completely different, not only where the tiles are, but how the meeples are distributed. I mean, it's pretty much endless. And like you, I like the Artisans. I could play it either way.
Right.
But the Artisans expansion, the coolest thing about that, in my opinion, is the little powers that come into play.
Right.
Because those are really fun. You can pull off some really big moves with those powers.
Yeah.
And that game doesn't have a ton of other typical big move opportunities. There's a few that you can do in the base game where you're, grabbing one of those big point tiles or something like that. But those powers really make it exciting.
That's why it really added a whole lot. That's why I really love that expansion.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Zolkin. You'll notice my top 3, this is a hint for my number 1, are all worker placement games. It's my bread and butter. It's what I like most in gaming. Zolkin is one of the only games that I have spent about 10 times more money pimping it out than what the game actually cost me. I have spent an obscene amount of money to get resources and components and everything else for this game.
And painted some of it yourself,
I painted it all myself. It's an absolutely wonderfully well thought out worker placement game in which it uses these dials that turn on the board that move your workers. So again, it's one of those games that is pure strategy. You have to go in knowing how many rounds that worker is going to mature and be able to do.
That's why you love it. It's worker placement plus that long term. You have to think ahead.
Yeah, multiple turns ahead in order to figure out what you want to do. I love the game.
It hurts my brain a little bit, but I like it too.
All right, we're on to our number 1.
All right, number 1 for me is Blood Rage. I love this game. I think I've played this game easily 25 times since it's been out. I never turn it down. I love playing at 4 or 5, which usually when I play, I'm going to play 4 or 5 player because some of those battles are just epic. I mean, you're almost like telling people, come on in here, let's do this, let's do this right. And when we play it, I always tell people, new people, look, you're probably going to get mad in this game, but go with it because you could still win the game like you talked about. I've seen a person win losing every battle.
Now, let me ask you this. Since you've played it way more times than both of us have probably combined.
Yeah.
What's the best player count, in your opinion, for this game?
I think the best player count is 4.
Really?
I would never play it at 2.
Yeah.
Barely at 3 a few times. 5 is fun.
Yeah.
You can get some huge Yggdrasil battles, but it starts getting on that long end. You're kind of like, all right, come on, let's do this thing. Though I love the mechanic how the board actually shrinks each round, which helps.
Yeah.
But 4 is great. And that's what I would pick with my player count.
Yeah.
But the card drafting part of that is really, really smart and really good. Like how you said that they handle the war issue.
Yeah. The card drafting is so important to me in gaming. Being able to decide what your change.
If you had to pick a second favorite mechanic,
I mean,
it has
if
to
you
be
looked at
drafting.
these games, a majority of these are card drafting. You have Nations, you have Blood Rage, you have Seven Wonders, you have a little bit of Sid Meier's Civilization, the way that you're drafting for your tableau.
And then worker placement.
Yeah, I mean...
if I could say this also with Blood Rage, is interesting. Some of those games when you're card drafting, if you kind of get behind, you're going to kind of be stuck. In Blood Rage, I've had to change my strategy mid-game and nearly won or win the game.
That's the great thing about that game, too. You have the capability of doing that mid-game because of the way that the cards come out and how they progressively get stronger and stronger.
Such a fun game.
Yeah.
Love it.
Cool.
Your number 1.
My number 1 is Orleans, or Orleans, however you want to pronounce it. I love this game. This game, you had it and introduced it to us, and... It too looked a little. It has a lot going on. It kind of has the look of a heavy game, but it's not. It's a very medium weight game. The amazing thing about this game to me, I play this with absolutely anyone. As I've said before, that's an important aspect for me is being able to play it with a wide range of groups. This game, given the depth and given the meat that's on the bone here, and the fact that you can play it with just about anyone. Is amazing. I played this with my girlfriend and her children, one of which at the time was probably 8.
Huh.
And they played it pretty well.
Did you take no mercy on them?
Maybe. Maybe not. But they played it really well, and everyone really enjoys it. The whole bag building aspect. In fact, there's a few games out there
It's
like
cool.
that.
I like that.
I'm surprised we're not seeing even more of that because it's really, really fun. It's like a deck builder, but it's just got that added excitement of reaching in there. Oh, I got the ones that I needed.
Yeah.
There's
And
really
you,
only
and
that
you know
game
what's
and
in there.
Hyperborea are really the only two
Yeah,
bag
Hyperborea is
games
one of them, too.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Orleans or Orleans, whatever you want to say, absolutely my favorite game of all time because of how many times, how easy it is to play with so
Do
many
you
different
think you will
groups.
still like it as much with the Intrigue expansion?
No.
Really?
The one with the
Yeah, the
take
interaction.
that.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing with the groups. Aside from playing with you guys, I mostly am going to play with people who, not our total Care Bears, but I would say of the three of us, I'm definitely the Care Bear of
Yeah.
the bunch. And
I think the only care.
we like, I like playing games, especially when I'm playing with family
Yeah.
and kids, that we're all kind of doing our own thing. And Orleans has enough of things going on, too, where you can passively get in each other's way, not like in a worker placement way, but doing things on the map that someone else was going to try to do, adjusting to the tiles that someone takes when they're building a building. You can have tried and true strategies in this game. You can't get away from them.
Sure.
And then if someone goes in and tries to steal that thing that you always do, then you have to figure out a new strategy.
My only problem with Orleans is that the map, to me, feels completely arbitrary. It doesn't matter where you start or what you do. And I know that the Intrigue expansion gives you missions to be able to take something to a specific location, which to me makes sense thematically
Yeah,
in
that's
the
cool.
game.
Yeah, the trade also does too. It allows
Yeah.
you to even
Trades,
if you-
that part of
yeah.
it.
You can actually build where somebody else has already built a building. Oh, okay. Oh, that changed
Yeah.
things for me. So you will
Yeah.
like the trade part of that
Yeah.
expansion. It does add a nice, piece of expansion, just where it's not going to be take that, but it's going to kind of add to what you've already been playing.
Yeah, and the game, even in its basic form too, it's very satisfying because there's so many different things you can do to score your points. Like I did when I've played with children, they'll focus on the map and they may have tuned out all of the rest of my rules, but they'll just go around that map and build houses and
Yeah.
and they ended up scoring a lot of points
Yeah.
that way because I don't generally do that.
Yeah.
So they ended up being competitive just by focusing on one little thing. And they've progressively gotten better as we've taught them. Okay, do that, but do a little bit more. So yeah, Orleans, great game.
Do you guys have an idea what my number one is?
Yahtzee?
I was thinking Boggle.
I actually know.
What?
If it's not Twa, I'll be really surprised.
It's Twa. Twa's been my number one game since the moment I played it. I love this game. It is a worker placement game that uses dice in a very, very, very clever method. By putting everyone's dice in a communal pool, you can use your own dice, or you can buy dice from other players at an expense. It's a great way to manage the dice, but also within the game, you're not only managing your dice and trying to score points from them, but communally, everyone's trying to defend off raiders that are basically coming into the city of Troyes. So you're doing these things on the board to kind of fend those people off. This game just got reprinted for the first time in several years. It was very hard to find. I'm so glad that Asmodee picked up the license of this. I think it was supposed to come out a couple weeks ago because we talked about it on What's Next. It got pushed back, and I think actually it came out this week in retailers.
Plus the expansion as well.
Ladies of
got reprinted,
Troyes as well.
Have you played with Ladies of Troyes?
I have played with Ladies of Troyes.
Is
It's
it
good.
absolutely play with it?
No, you don't have to play with it. Troyes by itself is a fabulous game. I love the worker placement. It's only the second game, this and War of the Ring, that even have dice in it that's used, which is incredible for me because almost everything on here is strategic, no luck.
Well, even Troyes is not really I wouldn't call it a dice chucker for sure.
No, it's not. I mean, there's no luck in that game.
Right.
This one right here, War of the Ring, is truly the only game that has luck with what you roll and using that to fuel your war effort.
Yeah, we'll have to play it. I might pick up a copy of that with the reprint for sure.
So, guys, that is our top 10 of all time. If you guys have comments, please make them below. Let us know which one of these lists you like best.
I'm sure you'll have comments for sure. Everyone has comments on our top 10s, and it is it can be a very fluid thing. We had different different aspects for how we approached our top 10. So please go easy on us. Don't beat us up too much.
Well, go easy on us.
Hey,
not the Care Bear.
You have to play Quarto if you're gonna come at me.
Right.
And stay tuned because in the coming weeks we'll also have our top 5 most popular games that we dislike.
Yeah.
And we don't want to. We want to try to make everything that we do positive. However, we realize that there are games that people really, really are passionate about that we just, for some reason, they just didn't hit right for us, and we don't know why. Hopefully, you guys can help us understand that by making comments in that video as well. Make sure you guys subscribe to us, of course. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do here at Man vs. Meeple. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.